And this is kind of the initial executive orders. Now we're going to talk about H-1B suspension of the premium processing. This has nothing to do with the executive orders or with the president. This one really doesn't have to do with President Trump.
Yeah, but we couldn't pass up the opportunity to share this information because it's late breaking and it will touch on a lot of the people that we serve.
But also is the state of the immigration right now. And what they've done with this, H-1B visas are temporary work visas for professionals. As many of you might know, the H-1B visa program has a limit of visas that the Department of Immigration can grant at any given fiscal year. Fiscal year, again, for immigration purposes, is October 1st to September 30th. So every year, fiscal year, they have 80,000 visas, H-1B visas. 20,000 of those 80 are exclusive for people with master's degrees in the United States, and then you have the 65,000 visas, and some are allocated for Singapore, some for Chile. Anyways, we're not going to get into the H-1B visa program today, but just to give you an idea. So when people apply for these visas, they have to go into a lottery. So traditionally, the Department of Immigration that has the premium process option for H-1B visas, and premium process means if you pay an extra fee, the Department of Immigration will process the H-1B visa in 15 days as opposed to the regular time that now is, unfortunately, is getting over, in many cases, over 8 months. So if you file an H-1B visa under a regular program, you will probably have to wait somewhere between 8 to 10 months to hear back from the Department of Immigration. Well, if you pay the extra fee, then they'll process it in 15 days. Processing doesn't mean they'll approve it, because they have to take a look at the visa if it is approvable. If they need more documentation, they'll request more documentation, but it's 15 days. So what they're doing now is they are not suspending the H-1B premium processing just for the H-1B cap visas, which is the 65 or 80,000 visas that they always do. At the beginning of the year, and the visa, you can start submitting your petitions on April 1st every year. And always they suspend that premium processing because they need to receive all the petitions and then decide how the lottery is going to go and then what visas they're going to process. So they have always suspended the H-1B premium processing program. Well, this year, in all their wisdom, they decided that they're suspending this for everybody. Everybody meaning any person, any organization, any H-1B visa that might be application that is filed, you cannot file it requesting premium processing or expedite processing. So we are all going to be filing H-1B visas under the regular process. This is effective April 3rd, which means that if we file today, we can premium process it. We can pay the extra fee, and they will do what they need to do. Before April 3rd, you can still file your petitions under the premium processing. Once April 3rd comes, you cannot request premium process services. What is the issue with this for many people? Well, many people who are changing status, as we know, if you need an H-1B visa to work, then you cannot start working until that H-1B visa is approved. So, and if you know that it's not going to be approved for 6 months, then you're going to have to wait at least 6 months or 8 months or 10 months until they finally approve it. For some people, that's a problem. So they're not going to be able to expedite. The Department of Immigration, in their when they made the release of this suspension, they did make clear that this is not a suspension for life, meaning the program is disappearing. No, it won't. It's just a temporary suspension, but they are also saying that it might last a little bit longer, or maybe 6 months.
Right, and one of the questions we had that we fielded before on this particular topic was, what is the likelihood that premium processing for H-1B is not started after 6 months? We just don't know.
Actually, and again, this is the optimistic person in me, because I always like to see the bright side of things.
Yes,
I honestly believe that maybe for some programs they might change the I don't even know. This is not a ban for sure, but they might just reduce the 6 months or 3 months to less time suspension of the H-1B premium processing program. I believe maybe, hopefully, they're not even going to take 6 months because they will be able to work on many things without having the pressure of doing things in 15 days. So likelihood that is going to last longer than 6 months, I think, is the same as anything with the Department of Immigration.
Right. I was about to
your
say.
guess is as good as mine.
Right.
But optimistically, I don't think it will last longer. Hopefully, it'll a lot less.
And they justified it because of the backlog that you were mentioning. It just was getting out of control. So that was one of the justifications they have. Now, they are allowing for you to request expedited processing under their criteria. And just to briefly touch on that, it's severe financial loss to company or person, emergency situation, humanitarian reasons, nonprofit who request furtherance of cultural and social interests, Department of Defense, USCIS or other compelling interests of USCIS. So you can see that criteria is really broad.
And like many things with the Department of Immigration, when they suspend a program or when they create specific programs that grant a benefit, they always have a list of possible exceptions. Mm-hmm. So they will look at on a case-by-case basis. I think that the economic argument, loss of loss of money for a company who is filed for this, I think is a powerful one, because if you have an essential employee, if you really need that employee to continue to do or operate business as usual, well, then it will be hard not to have that employee in place for 6 or 8 months.
Right, and I think that touches on especially the physicians who go in the underserved areas too. Obviously we haven't had to advance that argument just yet, but for those who've gotten their J1 waivers and have to go to medically underserved area, maybe we can argue that expedited processing to get them in place with their age.
Yes, actually, and this is great because we belong to one of the associations, the Physicians Task Force, and they are very proactive, and what we are trying to do is to probably help the Department of Immigration and other people to realize that for physicians there are certain programs in place, and some of those programs have to be with medical attention to the underserved populations. Mm-hmm. So that definitely is in the best interest of the United States that these physicians are able to complete their H-1B visas applications as soon as possible, so they can start providing the medical services for what they had been going through the immigration processes and programs, so that they can stay in this country to serve the exactly.
So the American people.
Exactly. So that those are kind of things that I think that when the Department of Immigration comes up with things like this, they are overlooking a bunch of things, and as they go, and other entities and attorneys and groups, they start kind of bringing their cases and needs to their attention, then they start realizing that maybe they need to be more careful instead of going and all kind of thing, go more selective as to who and when to implement a suspension like this.
Exactly. And again, that's why we would advocate for the client and for the employer in these situations, arguing that they do fall under the criteria provided.
So the advice on this one is, if you have an H-1B visa, that you need to file and get approved as soon as possible. File it now under the premium processing, certainly before April 3rd, because after that, you'll just have to wait.
Or if you have an H-1B pending, now would be the time to go ahead and bump it up to premium.
To premium process, correct.